Wait a few seconds, just a few seconds. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Good morning, Mr. Georgi. Welcome, welcome. Also, Georgi. It's 12 o'clock. It's a +4 to Greenwich Meridian. And it's official time to start our meeting. Welcome, everybody. And after yesterday's long day, of course, we have enthusiasm, and you are back to the meeting. So before I start speaking about the agenda, let me just remind you, I don't know how to call it, how to behave, let's say code of conduct in the online regime. First of all, each of you have, of course, the button to make a choice for the language which you feel more comfortable in. So you can make a choice of Georgian, and then I would like to ask you to turn off the original audio in order not to have some background voices. Yeah. So we've already checked the channels, and as we see, they work quite well. So if you have any problem in listening to the interpretation, or there is some interruption of the interpretation, please feel free. Just raise your hand or put it in the chat, and we try to improve the situation. So that's all from the very beginning. And as Miss Roxana yesterday already, they recommended, it would be better to turn on the video in order to make a sort of screenshot for the family photo, because we have no other choice, only this way. And maybe later on, because then afterwards you can turn it off and keep just for the speakers, just to keep the quality or the visual quality, audio quality, etc. So I think that our trainers are also ready to start. Mr. Sergey, I can see Mr. Sergey. Good morning, Mr. Kote, Mr. Nodar. And it's high time to go through the agenda and start the agenda. Of course, I'm not going to go through each of them. Today we are going to have both the practical work, exercises, as well as the theory. We also are going to have the group works, and I do hope that you will be very active in this process. And of course, we will use the information from yesterday, as well as the experience, and of course, our old experience, which you have accumulated so far. Thank you very much. And I think for myself, I've already exhausted my introduction. Roxana, Miss Roxana, would you like to add something here?
No, everything is perfect, Jörg. Thank you.
Okay, then let's start. Thanks a lot. Let's start learning. And I would like to give the floor to Mr. Sergey to start his quite a heavy, intensive working day. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, George. You're so kind. Hi, hello everybody. How are you? I was amazed yesterday. I was not tired.
Very nice.
Very excited with our training session. And especially that we ended up with a very active and very creative group work. Thank you very much. This is it's my pleasure, and I'm very happy especially to see your faces. Facial contact is very important for myself. So wherever it is possible for you and you are convenient to put your camera on, this is exciting for myself. Then I get an impression that I know you personally. and we are going actually to meet. So it's very good that we would know each other. Today, I would like to start with a short repetition of what we have done yesterday, and then we will go ahead with a focus on what you are going to do coming week and coming months. This is initial assessment of your companies. Let me try now to upload a present short summary or maybe key slides from yesterday, and I will take 10 minutes of your time and try to. Wait, this is not the one. This is wrong one. Just a moment. It was. I'll do one more attempt now. Yeah, that should be now correct. I just want to take 10 minutes of your time to basically go through the main content of yesterday's day, of what we have discussed. And I think it's good to refresh our minds because we will use this knowledge today. And we were speaking about preparations, and we were speaking about how to start initial assessment, how to identify the areas of opportunities for savings, opportunities for resource efficiency, improve the resource efficiency for the reduction of losses, reductions of wastewater generation and other negative environmental effects. And we have started that the very first step would be to understand the 2 days situation. We should know what happens today at the company to be able to compare this today's situation with what's going to happen after we would implement the recommended options, the recommended measures. And this is something which is called with a quite scientific word, baseline. And baseline is the description of the would have happened if a cleaner production measure would not have been implemented. It is not about carefully describing just the situation as it is now, but it is a description of what could have happened if we would not implement a measure or a program for resource efficient cleaner production. There is a difference between these two notions. The 2 days or yesterday's situation could have changed even without our project because of the growth in production rates, because the escalation of prices, because of the change in production profile. It is our task to simulate this process. What could have been if we would not implemented our measure, but something else could have happened at your company. Other investment plans could have been realized. And we started that this process of establishment of baseline comprises, we define the boundaries within our research or investigation, which is quite straightforward. We decide on which time period we will look back to collect our statistics from production rate, from emissions, for water consumption, for energy consumption. It could be 1 year, it could be 3 years, it could be the duration of one batch of your process. You could decide yourself, but it is important that you would be able to explain why you have taken 1 year, why have you taken 5 years, or why have you taken half a year, or for example, if you have a juice manufacturing company which has seasonal production process, which works basically 4 or 5 months a year, then there is no sense to take figures for the whole year, but there is a sense to take figures that cover this batch, this 4 or 5 months. Then once we have decided ourselves on which period we will look back into while collecting the baseline information, we should also assign the figures to our consumption rates, to our waste generation, both quantities and economic values. And we have been talking that sometimes we are not aware either of the quantities of consumed materials or especially lost material, or we do not undermine the cost of waste. And we have discussed yesterday that waste sometimes costs more than what we would expect. It is obviously more than those levies, charges, and payments we pay for the disposal of waste, for the disposal of wastewater to the municipal wastewater treatment plants, for the garbage collection and things like this. It costs more. It costs you the cost of lost raw material. It costs you the price of the lost product, the price of energy that has been used, and many other items that have a good and experienced expert would be able to establish a so-called true cost of waste, which is very important while further we would make ranking of the costs and while further we will calculate measures. Then we would select a limited number of parameters that we will measure the situation before and situation after. And once again, I would like to make to emphasize that this process of setting baseline should be based on facts, on figures, on some reference sources, should be conservative. We should not be too optimistic. We should rather be a bit pessimistic, a bit conservative, a bit on the safe side. And we should try to make a sensitivity analysis. What would happen if I would not have implemented my project? Maybe my company would anyway make a complete refurbishment of production line and anyway buy a new production line which is much more efficient. Or maybe prices for energy will grow up, and then we will have to assume that in our calculations of the costs, things like this. We told about these parameters, key performance indicators. They could be quite straightforward, which we are used to apply, like production rate per year or consumption of raw materials per year, but they could be also relative or indirect. And experienced experts, experienced consultants, they tend to use these relative indicators that show the ratios between quantity of raw materials and quantity of product, that show the ratio between the quantity of waste, solid waste, and quantity of end product that is generated, a yield of, for example, coating on textile, return of broken packages compared to the quantity of packages that have been sold, things like this. Often industries know these performance indicators, but we as experts, external experts, should be able to assess these indicators and try to find those who are which are measurable and which are measurable means that it's easy to collect information against these indicators, and which are typically characterize the process that we want to assess and the consumption of materials, of energy and water that we want to analyze. We also showed some examples that not all indicators are working well in certain circumstances. So it's a bit of an art for us to use those, and they keep simple and keep limited number. And once we have identified the key performance indicators, we would collect production statistics, or we will initiate measurements if we lack information, and we will suddenly find out that that the consumption rates or generation of waste or losses, they vary from time to time. And we will try to put some kind of targets. And these targets could be self-defined based on my experience, on your experience, based on previous year, based on average of previous 5 years production rates. But you could also establish indicators, key performance indicators, and look around what is recommended by specialized reference sources, reference books, what is special recommended by international organizations, and use this as a benchmark that would tell you the potential for savings. Then we have discussed that while we have started collecting information, we need to get a feeling of what happens at the company now, because the information we worked so far is a written information, our reports. They may not characterize well what happens now at the company. So we need to go through the production process. And we told that this is more than just a walkthrough. This is more than just a planned tour. We need to do several things. And the aim is to understand better the production process, but also initiate the process of analyzing what's happening in the company and what are the areas of opportunities, what are the priorities for my work, for my assessment, and what maybe to pick up some obvious cleaner production measures. We have told that it's preparations, good and thorough preparations is a key for a successful company visit, successful walkthrough. And it consists of several events. It consists of initial collection of information. It should also comprise some meeting with the big boss, with the managing director, but also meeting with the work floor, with operators, asking right questions to them to see how things are running at the companies. What are the production patterns at this company? How good they are with housekeeping. And once we've been at through the walkthrough, we will have to make notes and prepare some initial thoughts in terms of preliminary report that will summarize and come up with some thoughts about what could be the areas of priorities for us. And what is our advantage compared to the staff that works daily on our company is that we have fresh eyes, and we have been also to other similar companies. We know how this works at other companies. We have seen companies with bad housekeeping, but we have seen also companies of a very modern standard. So we could compare, and this is our advantage. This is a unique possibility for the company to get an outlook from a side person who has good knowledge and has good analytical skills. And then it's important to realize that the companies, they probably so far, they do not fully realize what's going to happen in our project. and they don't really, maybe not fully are aware of their benefits of working in our program, of benefit of going through the cleaner production assessment. And then it's important to try to raise their motivation, their interest and participation in our program, because simply we will have to communicate with them, we will have to meet with them, we will have to discuss our findings, suggest our conclusions, and here listen to their feedbacks. It's important to try during the company visit to raise their awareness about the benefits of being together with us, and also raise their awareness of what's going to happen during the program period. They probably don't know about this. And then be please professional as an expert, as an advisor, and try to make a formal document that show their company's commitment. Try to convince them to put on paper distribution of tasks, and maybe you could propose distribution of tasks between your team and between the company. It is not possible to work 100% independently from the company. That is why it's important that if it's some kind of conditions within the company, they facilitate the work of your team. And we have had few slides that gave you some hints of how could we organize this process in a professional way. We could make schedules and send to the company. We could make a schedule of meetings. We could say that at this point we want to meet to suggest you the outcomes from the walkthrough. At that point we want to make a brainstorm with you to discuss the opportunities and options for improvement. At this point we want to present you draft a report and then listen to your comments and feedback. So if you would be able to present during your company visit some kind of a plan, that probably the company would very much in favor of this. They will get some perspective. So this is in the core of information that we discussed yesterday. And now we're gonna go ahead and let me download one more presentation. Give me 1 second, please. Let me see. No, this is not this one. Yeah. We are going now through the our process of performing initial assessment, and we have collected some initial information. We have and our actually task is to understand the main processes at the company. We want to locate the areas of research at the company where we should put the main priority. We want to do our assessment with open eyes, but not with being blind. That's why we need to identify as quickly as possible the areas where we could expect savings, significant savings or opportunities for savings. And we are, and I think we have discussed that initial walkthrough is very important exercise, but it's not enough. We would visit the company, but we will probably not be able to catch everything what happens because it's a one-off visit. We would not know what happens there tomorrow or in 1 week. But we still are thinking all the time about our main task is to see where the wastes are generated, is to what is the source for this pollution, where the waste streams are small and where they are large, and maybe if they are large and expensive and hazardous, this is where we want to put our main focus at. There are lots of things we need to describe at our company before we are able to develop some kind of list of measures. This is why we need to understand better production process. Sometimes we make this specialized process flow sheets or process flow diagrams before we go and visit the company. Sometimes after. There is no strict rule. There are pros and contras. But it is important that we have some kind of a clear understanding of the processes that production processes that are found in our object of consideration. And we probably have already asked our company to give us a description of production processes, and they would supply us with all kind of PFDs, with all kind of schemes, detailed design, documentation that shows the parameters, temperature of water, pressure of steam, quantities, flows, things like this. But would be very different for us to navigate through so many details. At this point, we want to focus on the main steps of production process. And PFDs that the companies are very used to, they give us not sufficient information to be able to understand where should we go. Should we go here? Should we start here? Should we start, for example, here? It's not easy for me to judge because I don't know how much material goes through that process, how much material goes through another process, what the material is, what comes in, what comes out. There are lots of also electrical schemes, some kind of schemes that show automation systems, the companies. They're a bit more process schemes. They are a bit more descriptive to my mind, but also still we have too many technical details that at this moment they are redundant to my mind. So here it's an example from a real company. Here it's something better that we could already work with. So we received from our company a list of production departments, both process departments and auxiliary departments, plant services. This is where I could see where the production starts. We could see that the production starts with the storage. We could see that there is one production workshop that makes one type of beer. There is another there is another brewery that brews another type of beer. There is some place where the rejects and the spoiled product is stored. So this is already something that we could work with. But still, something is missing. What is missing? I don't know what comes in, what comes out here. So this is good, but this is not enough for myself to analyze production flows. When we are speaking about the process flow diagram, this is a basic tool when performing RECP assessment. This is a block scheme, a logical block scheme that gives you a sequence of your production process, provides an outlook at the main units of operation, and that also gives you what comes in and what comes out. And it could be a process flow sheet or process flow diagram that describes the whole company. Maybe it could be the same is done for one particular production workshop, or for example for a boiler house, etc. So it could be different levels of details. Up to us. Depends on the size of our company, depends if we are only about to start our initial assessment, or we are trying to dig into something that we notice that could offer us significant opportunities, and we want to understand the process in much better level of details. So here I show you one of the attempts that was made by one of the companies that took part at similar production training. And a good thing about this was a metalworking company, and a good thing about this process flow diagram that it shows at a certain point where they observe generation of waste. But they also mentioned that they were not aware that this is a waste. They thought, no, this is not a waste. Those are rejects or rework that goes back into production. So it doesn't go outside the boundary of the company. But then further on, when we discussed that, they found out that they cost a bit more money than the initial raw metal. So they understood that they lose here something, that this is actual loss for them. This is another example from another company, a process flow diagram, process flow sheet from also from metalworking company, which is quite descriptive. It shows us main steps of production process, what comes first, what comes at the end. It also shows us what are the inputs, what is put in at during the machine processing of metal, and what kind of waste or scrap is generated here, and also during the painting and during the degreasing. So this is quite illustrative form of process flow diagram. And that's if I'm interested to, and I think is that scrap is one of my points of concerns, is something where we would expect significant opportunity for savings. I know that I should go here and look into the generation of scrap. How does it look like? Is it more than the company's technology presumes, or less? Is it according to the best practices or not? Is it the same rates as I have seen at the neighboring company or not? So this is an example of quite good good process flow diagram, but you could further improve it, because you would probably also have not just solid, not just raw materials that input, but also you put some water, you put some ingredients, you put some energy. This is also, and this is not everywhere and each step the same. So this this example of process flow sheet or process flow diagram shows that a bakery that produces donuts And it shows that also utilities that are used at certain production processes, which is also an important focus in our assessment. And even they were thinking that utilities are so much important for this for this bakery that they have prepared a separate flow chart, flow sheet for the steam production, steam generator, because they thought that this is they spend a lot of money on steam, and steam costs much because the steam generator is run on electricity. So let's see what the process of steam generation is, and if we could make it more efficient. Then you could make a once you have prepared the process flow diagram, you could try to summarize all the main inputs, and you could try to see what comes in and what comes out on a company level and how much it may cost. If you have a during the walkthrough, you thought that there are some processes that are more polluting or more precarious, then and you want to focus on them, you could highlight this on your process flow diagram and make more detailed process flow diagram for this particular process. So in brief, to summarize, the process flow diagram is done as a block scheme flow sheet. You normally make it from top to bottom or from left to right. You figure out main production units that you think are sufficient at your level of assessment, and you indicate what comes in and what comes out. Very good if you are at this level could indicate quantities as well, but not always we have enough information. And you could also indicate the process flow diagram, whether it's a continuous process or batch process, or if, for example, for a special type of product, or during the startup, your process line has a different mode of operation, you can prepare a separate process flow diagram describing the special conditions. Of course, if only you think that this is an essential for your assessment. If during, for example, the startup or shutdown, you lose a lot of valuable material, then it's time, I think, to start thinking, doing this, making a process flow diagram for this special startup or shutdown operation. And I think during the initial, my personal opinion, that during the initial assessment, you don't need to go into too many details. It's much more important that you understand what are the main production units, then you go into and try to put all small operations, all small machineries at your process flow diagram. And don't forget about utilities, about water, steam, compressed air. This is also very costly. They are very costly, so indicate them at the process flow diagram where they are consumed. And also, please remember that information that we receive from the company, it could be outdated, because the company all the time they will buy new machinery, they do something a little bit here, a little bit there, they may have done something new, they may have applied new technology. So make sure that your process flow diagram reflects the present situation. And this is actually often we do during the plant visit, that we go through and compare what we have received in documents from the company with real situation. And if the process flow diagram reflects the situation as of 5 years ago, we should try to revise the process flow diagram, or if not possible, then we should indicate that this is an outdated scheme. Just give you a small example how I have been working, preparing the process flow diagram, because in 10-15 minutes you will start working on your process flow diagrams for your companies. But let me first show you an example. This was a real factory producing packed peanuts, and it's a quite simple process. They receive raw nuts, and then they are fried, salted, and then and packaged in bags, and then they're stored for some time and sold to clients. This is the way my company where I work described their process. And the question was for me, is it enough information to draw a process flow diagram? Yeah, it was clear that the process is quite straightforward, but it was not, the information is obviously contained some gaps. It was not possible to split through this information into operations, separate operations. It was too general information. So we asked them to provide us, spoke to their technologists and asked them to provide details about how the raw peanuts supplied to the company, how they are transported inside, with what they are, what process is for deep frying, what do they use for the deep frying, what are the temperatures, what are they using for cooling, is it water-based cooling or air-based cooling, what are they using for what material are they using to make them salty, then how do they get raw materials, in which vessels, in which packaging. So they gave us more descriptive information. Also, they answered on our questions is where do they observe waste, and this is all had been done before we went through the company site. They indicated that at least some of the nuts would be broken during the process of frying. Also, they use oil, and this oil could be used for some time. And then abandoned oil they should store it and do something with it. Replace it, but sometimes they forget to replace it to control the quality of oil, and that also affects the quality of end product. So that was for us much better information for splitting up the process into separate blocks, to defining operations, main operations. And this is, you could see that they first arrive in bags, then they dump these bags, then they fry it, cool, then put additives into the peanuts, then store at the company in the storage, and then they ship it to the clients, and package and ship to the clients. And the next step was to, based on the information we received, is to assign the inputs and outputs. And I think at this moment it was enough. We haven't had the quantities yet, but we had at least an impression what comes in, what comes out, so that we were much better prepared to see to go and see the company. We were no longer blind. We could locate the areas of our research. And of course, we were very concerned about the quantities of broken peanuts and what happens with the abandoned oil. Is it the good control of composition of oil or bad control? And of course, we found some opportunities for savings. But what I want to show you is that we have been equipped with some kind of a chart or flow sheet that guided us through the site visit. If you all of a sudden would be able to prepare such flow sheet before you visit your company, I'm sure that you will identify more and you will be in a better position to analyze what happens here, what happens here, and what happens here. So this is very important step in our assessment. Thank you very much. I'll go back to our session. And then, do you have any questions? I wonder. Or we could start with practical work, with practical exercises.
Sorry, one question. Do you have some kind of standardized process flow diagrams or templates which we can use for mapping up the processes, or we can use the samples and drawings what you have presented during your presentation?
And the
because
answer...
so sorry, I will continue. So sorry for once again. We have at our company, let's say, the value stream analysis, and so this horizontal, not vertical process flow. And is it some kind of standard to use? So this vertical process flow, or we can use also the horizontal process flow as the value stream?
Yeah, we have a recommended template, but we are flexible. So if you believe that the standard that you use at your company serves well to your assessment, this is very fine. Please show it to us. Maybe we could have a second opinion. But we are flexible. If you think that this is much better template, or that you are much better used to this template, you're free to use it, of course. We have a recommended template, but you decide if you want to use this recommended template or you want to use the corporate standard.
Okay, we will check your template, and if we somehow find that our version would be somehow more useful, we can also share it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Now I will show you the next point on our agenda is a group work on flow sheet. And what we are going to do, I will explain now briefly. I just wonder if everybody could see the Word document on the screen. Could you see my Word document?
Yes.
Document? Yeah. Okay. The main purpose of this working session, group session, is to make an attempt to start preparation of a process flow diagram, process flow sheet for your companies. And I understand that at this early point, we haven't been there. We don't have enough information, but we will at least make an attempt. And you will be also you will have the opportunity to see our feedbacks, our recommendations on the process flow diagrams. And our hope that we could have some sort or early draft of process flow diagram while you are traveling and visiting your companies. So this is the aim of our session, is try to describe, better describe our company, to try to be better prepared to our company visit through filling the forms that will later on make up or form the process flow diagram. And the forms are quite simple, and you are experienced experts, and I'm sure that you will understand them. A question, of course, is if you have complete information or you have you don't know much about your company. So there is no problem if something is lacking and then you have gaps. No problem at all, but you at least could indicate that here I miss information, here I don't have. This is something that we have bring back to the company and ask them in advance. First, during the training, this session, we will ask you to specify main production departments at your companies. It could be a small company or medium company with one main production department. It could be a larger company with a few or several production departments. Then try to list what are the main processes in this production department. And again, we would absolutely tolerant and accept if the information that you have is incomplete at this stage, but be please honest, write down that I don't have information here. We have to clarify information. At least we will know where should we locate our research further. This is we make for the main production. And also if your company has a storage or has a boiler house or has a compressor station, try also make the same list for auxiliary processes and for plant services. Once you have listed your processes, try to make them put them in a logical order. Prepare a flow chart or flow sheet. Try to draw what comes first and what comes after that. And if you know what inputs, what raw materials are put at this step and what raw materials are put at that step and what comes out. And what comes out could be semi-ready product that goes further into the process, but this could be also some losses, some residues, some spill-offs, etc. Try to indicate, don't try to be too detailed at this moment, and if you have time, do this try to focus on the main production departments. Try to prepare these diagrams for all main production departments that you listed at the table above. Ask questions. You will have trainers in each of the group, and they will be happy to explain you and share their opinions and advices. Once you have prepared this block scheme, and you will indicate what comes in and what comes out, try to summarize at this table all raw materials that are used at your company, what main products that are manufactured or produced at your company, main waste streams and main waste flows that are considered as a side product or losses, etc. Also try to list all the flows of the water. This could be a technological water, this could be water for cleaning, this could be water for steam generation, etc. It is not needed to fully complete this table at this point, but start preparation, this table, because it will be a part of your homework assignment. It would be very good if you would be able to receive, again, feedbacks during this working group at this, how you prepare this table. And if time exists, look also at energy. What are the main, which production units, production processes are the main users of power? Which production processes are the main users of thermal energy, like hot water, steam? And then I hope this information would be also very useful during your company visit. But start first with simple things. And I will ask Kote, could you please help me to send this template to each group? Kote?
Yes, it's already sent.
It's already sent. So I assume that each the team leader will have this template. If no questions, then how much time is now? So 5 to. So let's say you have 30 minutes to fill down these forms. I will kindly ask Roxana to help me to move into groups, if no questions.
Sorry, did you say 30 minutes, right? 30 minutes?
30 minutes.
Within the group, and so we can conduct further these templates. No problem.
I think it was a useful exercise because one thing is to have description of what happens at a company, but another thing is to try to put in some kind of a flow chart. And from what I've seen, I think the team I've been present at, they were very clever, and I've heard discussions, and obviously.
Сергей, вас не слышно.
Yeah.
Oh, I can hear him.
It was okay.
Well,
Me too. In English
well,
channel, maybe.
I can hear you.
colleagues, please select one out of two languages, because some of us are talking on the kind of common channel. Some of us are talking on English or Georgian channels, and it's kind of mix up.
Yes, on English channel there is no sound, but
Yeah, okay. Maybe Sergey was on the common channel, that's why. So please, everyone select one out of two channels, either English or Georgian. Please try not to stay on the on beyond of the of those two channels. Thank you.
Yeah, I will repeat. So my team was, I think, very smart and was very active. I've heard discussions, and I think what I'm very pleased with is that they were quite creative in trying to overcome gaps in information, obviously, and obviously there is a lack of information. We still don't have a complete overview of and description of the processes which are applied to the companies. We have decided that our team to prepare list of production processes and process flow sheets for one of the two companies and focus on one company. I think it was a quite right and correct decision. We understand that later on we will put all together, make nice arrows and nice illustrations, diagrams, but at this particular moment it was not so important. It was what was very important is that we start thinking about how to structurize our knowledge about production process, where the process starts and where the process ends up and what happens in between. What I would like to advise and keep your attention at is that the process flow diagram is our internal tool. It should help us to be not to be blind, to have open eyes during our company visit, and to be able to locate the areas that represent special concern for us, that we have a feeling, feel a smell of opportunities for savings. I try to always use that it's an opportunity area, and not, especially when we talk with companies, try to avoid saying that this is an area of concern, this is the area where emissions or losses come. No, this is opportunity for them, opportunities to save their costs and reduce their environmental aspects. What I noticed from my team is that we needed some time to understand that we need to separate inputs and outputs. Please don't mix them. From one side you put input, from another side you put outputs, and actually outputs is mostly unwanted subproducts or losses. And semi-products go further into the process and further into the processing phases. It is sometimes we have a simple process, simple company, a little company with small process, and it's straightforward from the beginning to the end. But sometimes we have a bit more advanced company with more equipment, and then sometimes we will start with a straightforward process, but at a certain point we will split, and you will see that two separate process lines would started, or processes would be started. This is no problem. This is okay, absolutely, to indicate the process flow diagram. What I was also noticed from my team is that from the very first look at this process flow diagram, one could also make some preliminary provisional conclusions that would be of an interest when planning my company visit. For instance, if I see that there is a pasteurization process or boiling of milk in a cheesemaker at a cheesemaker, I would immediately assume that this is a vessel and everything happens inside. So I would think that probably I would not see much while visiting this process. It doesn't mean that this process is run optimally and we couldn't find anything to improve that, but it implies that do not reckon too much on visual observation of this pasteurization process probably, but maybe you would need, especially for this process, collect measurements, collect recipes, collect some notes from the company. So you would probably want to analyze your process flow diagram and immediately find where you should go, and see, you would be able to observe operations because they would be open. But where it is closed, and maybe it's little to see, but you have focus more on collection of measured data or recipes or so. Also, I strongly also feel that at this initial point we don't need to overload our process flow diagram with too many details. I think details will come later on, and details will come when you will make up your mind about focus areas, about opportunities for savings. There, at that places, at that processes, you should dig in and try to understand in maximum possible level of details. The reason we make this process flow sheet, process flow diagram, is to understand the overall process and to understand where we would expect to see what. Would be great, of course, if we have enough data from a company to locate all the input and outputs during in the process. That it means that you will go and you will be able then to analyze your process already from this process flow diagram. And my personal opinion that maybe it's worthwhile not to hurry up too much with the initial company visit, but maybe spend a bit more time in preparation of the process flow diagram, making it correct, collecting data about what comes in, what comes out, and then maybe talk to us, to trainers, get our feedbacks, and then you will be much better equipped once you're visiting the company. So I would think that in my personal preference, I would prepare the process flow diagram process before the company visit, and make sure that it's illustrative, descriptive. It makes sure that we have been thinking about this process, what we see at the process flow diagram. We try to analyze where we could expect what, where we could expect some opportunities, where we could expect some faulty operations. And then once you go to the company, you will be able to identify, prioritize the areas you want to see. First of all, spend most of your time, you will go and ask much more direct and specific questions, and most likely you will receive much better, much more specific and much more complete information that will build a basis for your further assessment and analysis. I'm very happy to observe a very high level of participation and activity in your company and in our group, and I'm quite sure that that the same holds to the rest 4 groups. Yevtihi, you have a question? Yevtihi? No. Okay. We started this process with the process flow diagrams, but we will continue preparation of them as a part of our homework. And later on, we will introduce the templates that you would be advised to complete. But if you have your own company standard for the process flow diagram or your own preferences, this you are totally free. Remember, this is your own tool. This is done for yourself, not for myself, not for Georgi, not for Dmitry, but for your own convenience. So I hope and looking forward to receive your process flow sheet or process flow diagrams and be able to react on them, to give my feedbacks. I just wonder if the respected audience have energy to listen one more subject, one more presentation before the break, or you want to take 5 minutes of rest. Would you allow me to continue, and we could continue working?
As we see, they prefer to continue learning. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I'll
Sergey, maybe you need 5 minutes break.
No. I can go ahead. I just will.
Then let's finish second presentation till break.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will now. Upload one more presentation. Yeah. And could you see the presentation on your screen now?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's good. So one more subject we are going to touch upon before the break. It's about assessment of environmental aspects and environmental impacts and benefits. This is important because remember that our overall goal is to suggest an alternative to costly pollution control techniques that we want with our cost-effective measures. We want to achieve to combine economic savings for the company so that they are interested, and also we want, of course, to improve environment. Our task is to understand what is the environmental performance of our company, what are the main impacts and aspects of our industrial activities, and use this as one of the criteria for further selecting opportunity areas. If we see that the company's performance is very environmentally unfriendly, we would of course look and try to find solutions that would improve environmental profile of the company. So in this presentation, we will speak about environmental impacts and aspects of industrial activities. So while we are performing as experienced advisors and experts, performing RECP assessment of the company, and we are looking for looking for measures that would improve improve the efficiency of production process, reduce generation of losses, emissions, water consumption, wastewater generation. We should be able to quantify the present baseline. It means that the present impacts and the present aspects of environmental performance. And we should be able, of course, later on locate which aspect of our production activity, which production line, or which production unit, or which machinery generate hazardous wastes, for example, or is more responsible for pollution than the other one. And we should, during the initial assessment, we should identify these areas. Yesterday, we have discussed that during the walkthrough, during the plant tour, we go through the company, we look at the opportunity areas. We look at the try to evaluate production process. We ask ourselves where the waste is generated, where emissions are generated, where wastewater streams are generated, and why. We also try to see what happens during our walkthrough. We try to see what happens with for example, with the rejects, with the lost product, with the broken packaging materials, with broken bottles, with rejects, and other kind of wastes. How it is kept inside the company. Is it mixed all together? Is it thrown away to the nearest dale or spring? Or is it well demarcated area that is disposed for the, for example, old broken packaging? Is there any system at the company for the waste management? Do they have, for example, contracts with the waste management company for the reception of waste products? Those things will also characterize environmental performance and consciousness of the company, and we probably would make a so-called eco map of the company, where we will indicate at the layout of the company, we will indicate the areas of special environmental concern, or areas where we see some deviations from normal practices. This is what we have discussed yesterday, and I've been working the whole my life with something which is called gray environment. In other words, it's environmental consequences of industrial activities, and basically, environment offers us human beings some values that we are using these values, and of course, industrial activities they are affecting these common values that are offered by nature, by environment, and of course, our attempt is that our production activities would mitigate these negative consequences at environmental values, or we will introduce certain measures that will compensate an eventual impact and environmental losses. There are international conventions that specify main environmental impacts and main environmental concerns in the world. We have we have heard they are very high on agenda. I will just briefly go through a few of them because I think it's important for us as internal experts to locate our specific industrial process to global environmental concerns. This will both raise awareness of the company's management about negative aspects of their production activities, but also will also help us with further description of the measures and further contacts with environmental authorities, with banks and other important interested parties. So there is a lot of concern about the climate change and emissions of green, so-called GHGs, and there are some international standards that describe how this greenhouse gases should be evaluated and these emissions should be quantified. It's always a part of my work when I perform analysis of eventual projects that have potential positive effect on environment, to quantify emissions of greenhouses before and after a project is realized. And sometimes it could be seen as a very straightforward task, but but we always try to use correct methodologies for greenhouse gases quantification, and this is greenhouse gases emissions is a subject for international agreements and international and also domestic trading schemes. So correct calculation of greenhouse gas emissions is very important in our work, and I'm sure that when you will fill your templates, you will find calculation sheets for helping you assessing CO2 emissions. There is also significant concern about ozone depletion, and there are some international conventions that restrict production and the use of certain gases, carbon hydrofluorides, for example, and other fluorides for fluors. We know that there was done this quite significant innovation and research into possibilities for using ozone-friendly gases in cold storages, fridges, things like this. So now they are mostly ozone neutral. Then another global environmental concern is acidification, acid rains that damage lakes and water sources, and then also will have a very negative effect or impact at vegetation. This is a big concern, especially where the coal is used, where the sulfur is used in the production processes. That acidifies in the form of SO2. The drains down to the landscapes and then raises acidity of rivers and lakes and landscape and land. SO2 is a part of environmental reporting system. So it's very common for us when we are developing environmental projects and programs to quantify SO2 emissions. So this is something that hopefully we'll also do in our work. Then, of course, most of the company, they use water, and if they use water, they generate wastewater. And emissions to water, they also have detrimental effects for drinking water sources, but also have significant effect at the biota, the ecosystems in rivers and lakes and oceans. We all remember, yeah. So this is pollution is a very hot topic. Another hot topic that grows now and grows international concern is the contamination of land and water basins. Especially the recent research shows a significance and of contamination of water sources with microplastic that then comes into the food chains and nutrient chains, and is poisonous for fish and further on. Then industrial activities, they may occupy certain land. They also change the landscapes, and in this way they also may affect the biodiversity in the surrounding areas, or change the natural habitats, which is detrimental for species that live in these areas, plants and animals. So we should be aware of these global environmental concerns and global impacts. But when our company is involved in industrial process, it is not so easy to relate its specific processes to these global environmental concerns and impacts, because this is more or less a consequence of our industrial activities. But direct side effects are pollution, are wastewater, are emissions, are solid wastes, and then some of them could be less hazardous. Some of them are quite hazardous, and it's important for us to be able to rank them. If we notice that a certain waste stream is hazardous, that is always our special concern, and we should think at first hand, what could we do with this? Because it's hazardous. It makes harm for environment, and it's very difficult to get rid of it. It costs a lot of money, and not necessarily an infrastructure is ready for neutralization or some other treatment of hazardous wastes, which is environmentally doesn't impact environment. So I think please keep this in mind, that we as external experts, we should be able to advise the company about which waste flows are considered to be hazardous, toxic, and harmful, especially harmful. And this is you as experienced people that you should that are aware of global environmental concerns, and you are in a better position to advise this to the companies. So in many countries, you also have some kind of grading of waste from category 1 to category 5, and these national guidelines will help you to, of course, to locate hazardous waste. Give you example, a heat and power plant. It generates heat and power but it also generates ash. It generates wastewater. Something should be done with it, with ash. It should be somehow disposed. Also, wastewater should be treated somehow before they could be sent to municipal wastewater treatment plant. So they need to be pre-treated. There are some emissions from the stack, and these emissions should be controlled and quantified. And then we, as experts, we should be able to locate, to correlate, to link these environmental aspects, the emissions, wastewater, solid waste generation, to these global environmental concerns like greenhouse effect, quality of land, soil, water, land, etc. Health aspects, for example. You could also, as an experienced persons, you would be able probably to understand that the company itself, it maybe reports to environmental authorities on environmental pollution, but most likely it measures or assumes a limited number of parameters, whereas you might be also able to see many more environmental aspects that the company simply reports to environmental authorities. And in this way, while preparing your projects, while making assessment, and you would be able to report to the company and raise the awareness that there are probably more environmental aspects that they are reporting to environmental authorities, and more environmental concerns that may affect environmental profile of your company. This slide lists some common environmental types of pollution. This information is important for us because we will later on make our assessment and prepare a report. And a part of our evaluation process where we select opportunity areas or areas where we would focus at first hand is analysis of environmental aspects. We would like to rank or weight which aspects are significant or more significant, or which aspects are less significant. And here is the table which you would find in your report, and you would be recommended as a part of your homework to fill it in. You list based on information that you would collect from the company, based on information that you would collect it during the walkthrough, during the company visit. You will make a list of wastes. It means the solid waste or emissions, wastewater streams. You will assign which production unit or which process is responsible for generation of these streams, of these unwanted streams. And then you will try to quantify them and make a qualitative assessment of how hazard, how poisonous, how harmful they are. This is based on your experience, based on some kind of guidelines, based on sanitary norms that you will find. Please try to make ranking of the level of hazard, of the level of harm, environmental impacts that they bring in. And then if a company has some kind of compliance problems, for example, they could not meet requirements from environmental authorities on a specific waste stream, please indicate that, because this will be a clear signal that we have to focus at this particular waste flow, do something, because the company doesn't comply to the requirements of environmental authorities. And it might happen that the company is very advanced and has maybe a main office somewhere in Tbilisi or somewhere in Europe, which the main office wants to apply corporate environmental policy, and this policy places certain environmental priorities. And if it is so, also please indicate that, okay, our environmental policy or corporate policy of the company prioritize this particular waste flow. And if you are experienced advisors or experts, you try please relate the waste stream, the waste flow, for example, scrap, for example, dust, with global environmental concerns, with global environmental impacts. That you will find the list of these impacts in this presentation. And based on all this, try to highlight which waste flows should be prioritized from environmental perspective, because this would be something that we will later on counterweight with other selection criteria. This is an important information. I think that will help in our overall assessment and evaluation of opportunity areas of where we should look much closer, much more in more details, where we should try to solve a problem and gain certain improvements and benefits. But later on, when you would suggest a certain project, a certain measure, it is very important that you will also assign and quantify environmental benefits to your project. And this would be in terms of quantities of waste that were prevented. It would be maybe environmental friendly packaging, or it could be, for example, reduce risks to the health of people living in surrounding areas. So please don't forget that when you prepare describe your measures, that environmental benefits would later on be also a part of evaluation of your feasibility study of your measures, and you will have a special template. I think I will stop by now, and ask you if you have any questions about this important topic, which is actually a part of the process of putting priorities, of prioritization process. Are there any questions so far? If no questions, then it's a time for a break. And we are back 20 past, we're back 20 past 2, right, George?
In Georgian time, 14.
Yeah, 14, not 2.
At 2 o'clock.
At 2.
At 2 o'clock. He says.
Now it is 2 o'clock.
No. Esa
20 minutes?
20 minutes.
Maybe after 20 minutes.
Yeah. I think we take 15 minutes break.
50 or 15?
15.
15? 15?
1-5. Thank you.
Kolegebo, იმედია დაბრუნდით.
დიახ, აქა ვარ.
ძალიან კარგი.
აქ ვარ. მიკროფონი გამართებული გარს აქვს.
შემოგიერთებით.
ძალიან კარგი, მადლობა. ამ დროს ესეთი რეალური ტრეინინგების ფიზიკური შეხვედრისას რო ვატარებდით, ფოიეში
When we had the real physical trainings, I would, after break, I would go to people one by one in foyer, asking them to come into the room. And now I don't know how to do, what to do, and how to urge you, how to invite you back to the workshop, the seminar. So can you switch on cameras to see that?
კარგით. კი ბატონო. დავიწყოთ მაშინ. სერგეი.
Start, Sergey.
Okay.
იმედია იგივე ენერგიითა და
Hopefully you have the same, and you will be able to continue with the same energy and zest.
I took some physical exercises during the break. I'm full of energy now and full of enthusiasm. We will start now. This is the last part of our training session, and we will have now actually one presentation on a particular subject, and then group work, practical exercise. Then we will speak a bit more about what we are going to do after this session. But before that, I would like to point your attention at this initial assessment. I will now upload my presentation and begin. Ladies and gentlemen, could everybody see my presentation? Yeah. Yeah.
Chance.
That's very nice. So where we are now, we have collected initial information. We have put it together and prepared the process flow sheet so that we know the order of assessment. We have been to the company, we spoke to the management, we went through the production facilities, took a lot of pictures, made very nice and comprehensive notes, got millions of ideas what to do. That's something we are going to speak about now. The information that we have collected during the initial assessment should be somehow analyzed, collated, and we need to identify what are the main opportunities at our company. We need to locate the area of our further assessment and research. And we need, hopefully, we want to show first measures that we have picked up and identified. This is about putting priorities. This is about selection of areas of opportunities. This is about the focus, further focus of our assessment. That would later on hopefully bring us to a comprehensive action plan of measures that will exploit most of existing potential for better resource efficiency, for reduction of wastage at our company. Now, I would assume that you will prepare company visit reports, and they might look like this one. In the company visit report, I hope that you will already locate some areas that you think are essential for our further research. You will show the figures and describe what you have noted there, what you have noticed, what you think is a suboptimal practice, what you think is a source of essential significant waste stream, and what you will describe what you think is wrong or doesn't correspond to the best practice. This is good starting point, but this is still not a list of priorities. These are your observations. They could be subjective. During your company visit, you will try to further elaborate the identified opportunities, and you will try to figure out what the problem actually is, or what is the reason, source of the problem, and what could be done to eliminate this problem or problems. So you will probably come up with several options or several measures that are quite straightforward, that look like quite low cost, reasonable cost, and that would not require significant significant pre-assessment work, feasibility studies, business plan. It could be implemented company by your company as soon as possible. But still, when you see this, notice these measures, we have discussed yesterday what kind of measures these could be. We have also discussed yesterday that we will provide you with checklists that probably will focus your minds at these standard opportunities and low-cost measures. But still, it's good to think whether these measures are so very straightforward, if they're really no cost, or still some sort of preparations should be done. Maybe training should be arranged. Maybe we need to collect quotations from from suppliers. Maybe we need to prepare a new instruction or make a memo for the staff of what they should do in a different way compared with the previous times. And we would probably describe what has been before and what should be done after that. And one important issue is this downstream effects, because sometimes if our measure is implemented at a certain unit, a certain machinery, it's a part of a technological process, then everything is interrelated. And if we improve a certain process or unit, which is a part of a larger system, it may have an interaction, it may have an influence at downstream of the process later on. And if it is so, we should describe that. It may have some positive effects, but it may also make some complications, some necessity to do some kind of changes resetting automation systems, putting new instruction, also at another equipment downstream your process, another pieces of equipment, another unit. This has to be assessed and evaluated. For example, if we, an example which I have shown you earlier, if there is a beer brewery that that suffers from significant breakage of bottles with beer because of poor quality of bottles, they have established a quality control post at the packaging machine. This is very good. This is a very low cost measure, but time taken for packaging will be longer. How does it affect further processes after the packaging, of the storage of the ready beer, bottles with beer? Maybe we have to do something there to accommodate this new quality control post. So we need to assess, also do some kind of assessment of this straightforward and low cost measures as well. But still, a part of straightforward measures and low cost, easy, simple measures, you will have lots of ideas, lots of opportunities that you picked up in your report. And it's important to see which opportunities are viable, which opportunities address significant environmental effects, or address large waste flows, and which are less significant. And of course, we wanna pointing our attention and efforts at those who are addressing environmental hazards, which are addressing the areas of maximum losses in terms of quantities and in terms of economic losses, in monetary terms. So it's we still, even if we separate it and have described the most straightforward measures, we will still face a situation when we have several ideas and they need to be ranked somehow. And we need to, as professional people, as experts, we need to suggest our company a valid method for sorting them out. Then this is our main point of attention, and this is would be put later on in our report. What are the main significant areas of opportunities that we would like to highlight for our management? And this is a part of assessment, which is based on a certain methodology, and we strongly recommend our company to focus further assessment at these particular areas. Basically, at the beginning of the process, we basically would have some kind of an impression, some kind of a feeling of what could be done at a company. For example, if I was working an hour ago with my team that has a cheesemaker company, kind of a dairy production, then I would immediately thinking about cooling processes, about pasteurization processes that would require energy, that would require cold energy, and this all has to do with electricity. And I will be excited to do some kind of immediately go and make measurements measure power, measure electricity consumption, quality of electricity, and suggest any measures that would reduce consumption of electricity for chilling, for cooling processes, and for pasteurization, for, in a way, boiling process. But this is what I would do if I am a unexperienced expert, an unexperienced advisor. If I'm an experienced advisor, I would try first to locate priorities and then make up my mind what should be done at first hand. I have to be from the point of departure. I have to accept that all units of operation, all steps of our technological process, they may represent significant opportunities. They may we may unveil hidden costs there that a company is not aware about. And this is so we have to be neutral, not biased, not loaded with any predetermined opinions. We should understand that every step of the process may represent a very exciting opportunity for savings. So our assessment, our ranking of priority areas, ranking of opportunity areas is basically based on our assessment and evaluation of environmental aspects and impacts of our production process. In simple terms, where we generate largest flows of wastewater, air emissions, where these flows are most hazardous and represent the largest exposure to environment. We should locate the quantities of this waste and economic value of waste, where we lose most of our material, of our product in terms of quantities, and not least in economic terms. And we should probably also look into opportunities that offer us the best, largest, biggest improvements, where we could make biggest gains. There is, if we feel ourselves, yes, indeed, our process generates, our boiler house generates a lot of ash, but we use coal for combustion, and we have any choice to choose our supplier of coal, and the coal we use is brown coal that has very large content of or impurities of dust. Then there is little we could do. But if we all of a sudden see a step of production where we feel we could gain a lot, this is also a signal that this is our opportunity. So analysis of these three aspects may lead us to better understanding where to go, what to look at first hand, where we could gain best opportunities for savings, for environmental benefits. What is also very important, that this process should involve company to as much as possible extent. The company may be a source, our company could be a source of ideas. They know where the waste is generated. They probably have had some thoughts in mind. They have met other companies in their branch that have done something with this. And they also have some plans, future plans, and maybe our opportunity areas are completely lying outside their policy, their business strategies, and their interests. So it's quite important that we involve them during the initial assessment, that they help us to collect information with regards to all kinds of losses that they make, and they also provide a feedback on the opportunities that we picked up, and that we our list of priority areas that we want to suggest them and then use in our further assessment. So it would be very good if you if the company visit report would be later on communicated to your counterparts from the company, and they will be able to provide their feedbacks and remarks on your findings. Now I would like to give you some kind of a theory of this process of prioritization, of putting priorities and finding focus areas. Imagine that we have make a company overview, a company flow sheet, and we identify all the main inputs and outputs to the company, and then we would be able to see that the solid waste in terms maybe in economic terms is very important output for our company. We maybe it's one of the biggest biggest source of losses at our company. So we immediately believe that this is where we could make biggest gains. Then there are various streams of solid waste, and these streams we imagine we have identified the main streams, and they represent different, for example, they have different economic values. And then we try to assess these values, and we see that some of the flows could be more represent a larger burden to our company than other ones. The same could be also done, for example, in terms of quantities, in terms of water consumption, in terms of energy consumption. We will find out that within the given category, someone is less important and something is more important. And then you will probably think yourself that those who are most represent the biggest burden, largest quantities, most expensive, they should be the object of our most careful investigation and most careful assessment. And then we selected for ourselves these focus areas, these focus streams, and then we look into them carefully, and then developed some kind of measures that would improve performance and reduce the sources. These measures would be characterized with some sort of investments and savings, and then a company would be able to decide themselves what they want to do. They would probably want to implement the most profitable project that offers them the biggest savings or return to initial investment at first hand. So this is a very generic approach that we try to split the overall stream into main streams. Then within this mainstream, we select the most essential. Within this most essential, we try to understand who are responsible for the mostly for our losses and costs. again and again, we should remember that this exercise would be correct if we are in position to assign true costs of waste. And the companies themselves, they are not always in a position. They do not always have enough time to think carefully about the true costs of waste. It is it's an art, and it's our advantage, like external experts, that we have much broader perspective, and we would be able to think more careful how much my waste product costs if it is observed, generates at the beginning of logical process of your process line, or how much does it cost if it occurs or generates at the end. For example, going back to our example with brewery, one thing is that we lose bottles. Bottles are broken when they are empty. They have one cost. But if these bottles are already poured with beer and closed, and then they are broken, then the cost of our loss is much bigger. So it's important to be able to correctly quantify cost of our waste flows while doing this prioritization process. Otherwise, we may prioritize something that is less essential for the company than the one that we neglect at first hand. And then you would suddenly find out that often small number of waste streams or activities are responsible for the most of the costs for our company with regards to wastage. And this is a typical we say in our small world of cleaner production and energy efficiency experts, resource efficiency experts, it's a 30-30 rule. It's a kind of rule that could apply to various activities, human being activities. But in our case, we would often find out that limited number of flows are responsible for the most of losses. This is where we would probably want to direct our much closer attention and go in much deeper level of assessment and analysis. This is what we want to reduce at first hand. And this is in a way putting focus and priority for our further activities. But again, if you are working in a small company, this is probably not so laborious task. But if you, for example, work with a large company with lots of production lines, with several departments, with many different flows that come in, and also, unfortunately, many sources of pollution, then it would be a very laborious task to collect information about all flows and then prioritize them. Sometimes it's easy, but sometimes, especially at larger companies, it would require a comprehensive set of data to be available during our process. It means that we will spend lots of time before actually locating opportunities for our further assessment. We will spend much time in data collection, and we simply do not have this time. Companies don't want to wait for a long time. Companies do not like to receive us and that we work there for several days. And we ourselves are not so well paid for our work to be able to spend weeks and weeks identifying all essential sources. So this is one approach. It is very suitable, especially for Georgian companies, for small and medium companies, less suitable for larger companies, bigger companies that have several production departments and several processes. Another approach would be for us is illustrated on the next slide. We take what we have, these information statistics on typical consumption of raw material, for example, or consumption of water for our process, for cleaning, for example, of our dairy. Then we compared with some sort of benchmarks, and then we try to look where we are, and if, for example, benchmark, we are very far from a benchmark, for example, kilowatt hours per 1 ton of cheese production. That will also give us a signal of opportunities for savings. I will further on give you an example. For example, it's a company that produces forage pellets used for breeding fish, and through their analysis, they found that couple of processes, they are mostly most energy intensive. They looked into them in more detail. They collected benchmarks or norms, and they found out that, for example, for example, a drying process with regards to electricity performance indicator, it is not so much above the benchmark. But with regards to thermal energy, steam consumption, it's much above the benchmark. So we would think that the steam consumption at this dry process is a real opportunity for us, because it's very different at this moment from what we are suggested by the benchmark, by our target. We would like to prioritize this flow, this consumable. And then once we have observed, compared our flows of wastage, of water consumption, of energy, compared with the benchmark, we have concluded how efficient we are. We have concluded that deviations are, let's say, 10, 15, 20, 25% or more. Then by knowing the total consumption of energy, total consumption of water, total consumption of raw materials, we would be able to multiply by deviation per 1 unit of production and assess what are eventual losses we make. Essential losses we make in quantities, but also by knowing the price of unit price of our energy, water, and raw materials, we would see where we are, where we make most of economic losses. And this is another method, another approach that could be applied. Especially it works well for larger companies. I would only comment that this is a method that should be applied with care. And you, as experienced and professional experts, you have very good knowledge of methodology. You could assess yourself whether the benchmark that we have chosen is attributable to our production process or our equipment or our company. We prove it. We are completely aware that aware that this is correct to compare, to use this benchmark. Then we apply this method. But sometimes, of course, we will not find a good benchmark, or we will find a benchmark that doesn't fully apply to our process, and then we might make mistakes. This is an example of application of this method number 2. This is an expert wrote a report by that assessed the production of carbon anodes that are used in metal casting industry and for electric plating processes. And then they made a comment. They found out by comparison a benchmark with actual situation of the company. They found out that this is a significant deviation. We are almost 1.6 times over the benchmark with regards to overconsumption of carbon as a raw material. And this is significant opportunity area. And then the expert made an assumption of what are the reasons, according to his knowledge and understanding, and not least according to his or her observations during the site visit to this overconsumption. Why we are so much above the target, above the benchmark. And then he located also the possible opportunities to reduce this gap between the benchmark and the actual consumption. You will find in our report, in our templates, you will find a table where we will suggest you to make an analysis of where we are in comparing to the benchmark indicators. We will later on speak about all the templates we're going to use, but we will try to make this analysis. It means that we will try to find benchmark values for our production processes. It might seem to be hard work, but if we dedicate our time, make research, speak to people, it might happen also the company knows itself, but then we may be able to collect the wanted information. But this is an example when one of the company, they didn't manage to find relevant benchmarks, so they have used approach number 1. They listed all the main inputs to their production process, listed the quantities and the costs. They assigned the quantities of losses of their materials and their inputs and their costs. And based on that, they have put their priorities for further investigations and further assessments. For small companies, this approach works quite well. And then you will find later on during the group work and later on when you will make your homework a table where we would summarize our losses, or the flows of our losses in terms of and try to rank them. Where we lose mostly? Is it the loss of raw materials? Is it the loss of water? Is it is it wastes that we generated at the end of the process? So we will try to rank in monetary terms our losses. We will put all together and try to judge where we lose mainly. Everything is done to understand where are to locate where the main opportunities are. But once again, I would point your attention that to the fact that the overall ranking should take into account environmental concerns and environmental considerations. So this table that I've shown you in my previous presentation would also be a part of a ranking process. And to quickly summarize, when we have done with the initial walkthrough, when we are done with the initial collection of information and ending up with a process flow diagram, we have identified lots of opportunities, lots of waste flows. We have to select the most the ones that we will focus our main attention at, and this has to be done based on certain methodology, and the methodology should be systematic and correct. And basically, we will use a few indicators, like we will try to find where the losses have largest quantities and largest costs. We will try to look at water and energy users, largest water and energy users, and point our attention at them. We will also try to collect benchmarks for our production process or equipment, machineries as soon as possible, and then see what are specific rates of consumption or waste generation, of emissions, water consumption, energy consumption for these processes, compare with the benchmark, and to find where the deviation is the largest and where we could expect the most significant opportunities for savings. And also we will look into environmental aspects of our industrial performance to find where we could find most severe, most hazardous aspects, or most hazardous activities, and this could also be a part of our overall decision-making matrix. It's a creative process. There is no any straightforward and instruction how we make priorities, but if you have a certain methodology, if you follow it, then we would be guaranteed that the further our investigations and further assessments would be done in the right direction. This is all for now. With this presentation, with this topic about selection of priorities. but we will further on now split into in groups and continue our exercise and try to find which priority areas could be expected at our companies. But before that, if I would like to do two things. I would like to ask you if you have any questions on this subject. And
from my side, no questions.
Okay.
It was clear. Thank you.
Then I would like to, before we go...
I'm sorry, I have a question. Somebody has the question. When we start doing the exercise, I'm really confused. What we have to do specifically with regard of the group work. So we have to consider enterprise, yeah, but we don't know the technical details for the enterprise. You can put there any type of the figures because you have not been there. But you know what is important? When you fill in this form, you have to know where you have to put waste, where you have to put materials, raw materials, etc. Because the first column is about the names. Yeah, what type of the materials are there? That you just need to know what type of ingredients, what is the ready-made product, etc. But the amount or quantity, it is not important here. Because as you can see, the statistics is made then automatically for the each and every part. The same applies to the energy, same applies to water. So now we speak about the ingredients and not about the figures. Figures can be taken any, because anyway, it will be distorted figure during the preliminary study. Because later on, you will check it, you will verify them. Okay, I just continue Mr. Kote's conversation that so what you find more logical, those figures we can use based on the specifics of the enterprise. For instance, if the gas supply is here, the huge, or water supply is huge, also based on the threats stemming from each material, that is for us. So now we can start the group works. We do not have more questions. No, I have one more question, please. I already have seen the task. That is just only example. Just only example. You can change those figures because we do not have the real figures now. You can manipulate with figures. So I am inviting you to the rooms now.
Wait a second.
Ismet.
Yeah. Can I fully agree with Kote? You are not supposed now to put all the right figures. It's a practical exercise on applying methodology. The figures you could do after the training session, when you have completed the initial collection of information. And I would like to give the floor to my colleague Dmitry, that will in more details explain the content of the training of this working group before we go into our groups and start working on that. Dmitry, are you ready?
Так, добрый день. Сейчас я покажу на экран доступ до таблички, с которой мы будем работать. На практической работе мы с вами постараемся использовать некоторые инструменты, о которых говорил Сергей, некоторые подходы по оценке вклада разных составляющих затрат, отходов, их ранжирования. Мы будем использовать уже как бы подготовленную нами Excel файл, форму, которую вы можете скачать или уже скачали на Google диске. Она перед вами на экране. Это Google форма. Она, как вы видите, похожа на форму из предыдущего задания. Кто начал с ней работать, успел на предыдущем, тот может это увидеть. И эта форма, она похожа на форму, которая будет у вас в отчете. Начинаем мы с того, что у нас есть вот такая достаточно крупная таблица, которую сейчас здесь включены некие абстрактные цифры. Вы на своей работе групповой сможете уже использовать либо имеющуюся информацию, если она есть в группах, или какую-то информацию, которую вы просто будете сейчас принимать. Одна из наших целей, да, основная, это опробовать данный инструмент и разобраться, вот как с ним можно будет потом дальше вам работать. Опять же, мы должны понимать, что практически всегда мы имеем дело с ситуацией, когда у нас недостаточно исходной информации. И детализация этой исходной информации тоже у нас бывает разная и бывает не самая хорошая. Поэтому одни и те же инструменты в разных случаях и для разных предприятий могут одни быть лучше работать, а другие могут не так хорошо отрабатывать. Смотрим теперь по формочке. У нас есть графа A, здесь сырье. Мы включаем материал 1, материал 2, но мы будем указывать уже конкретные свои какие-то виды нашего сырья. Да? Указываем количество, указываем стоимость этого конкретного сырья. Дальше у нас есть процент потерь. Процент потерь, тут ситуация такая, что в каких-то случаях этот процент потерь может быть обусловлен особенностями технологии. Это могут быть какие-то несанкционированные потери, это могут быть регламентные потери. То есть эта цифра, ее нужно узнавать, общаться на предприятии, и в разных ситуациях предприятие может по-разному даже понимать свои реальные потери. Они могут знать такую информацию, могут не знать такой информации. Поэтому тут нужно уже по согласованию с предприятием определять или точно, или ориентировочно принимать какое-то значение потерь. Да? И тогда вот в колоночке И мы здесь имеем расчетное значение стоимости потерь каждого из материалов на нашей технологии. Аналогично у нас по упаковке идет, по вспомогательным материалам, по воде. Вода, которая используется на изготовление продукции, у нас тоже может иметь какие-то небольшие потери или не иметь. А вода, которая не идет в продукцию, она у нас здесь учитывается 100%. Ее количество, которое не идет в состав продукции, по сути. То есть у нас мы определяем таким образом вот затратные составляющие наших ресурсов, которые в конечном итоге не попадают в наш продукт. Дальше рядышком у нас находится колонка, которая output. Здесь мы указываем виды нашей продукции, стоимость продукции. Если есть у нас какая-то вторичная продукция, то мы можем сделать аналогично. По отходам. По отходам тоже мы вносим те виды отходов, которые нам известны, ну, которые мы знаем. На предприятии более полную информацию мы сможем взять. Указываем, какие отходы у нас есть, сколько этих отходов, сколько предприятие тратит, какие затраты предприятие несет, связанные с управлением данными отходами. Тут ставится то значение, которое предприятие понимает само для себя по бухгалтерии, вот, известная для предприятия величина. Хотя, как говорил Сергей на презентации, во многих случаях вы увидите, что реальная стоимость отходов может оказаться больше и даже намного больше, чем просто операции по обращению с отходами. Об этом еще скажем буквально немножко позже. Аналогично по воде, сточные воды, которые могут образовываться, то же самое. Количество, стоимость. Выбросы в атмосферный воздух. Если есть детализация, то можно дать детализацию. Ну, здесь для примера просто указано все вместе, как бы понимая, что, скорее всего, на данном этапе детализации у вас может не оказаться. По сути, таким образом, мы имеем на практической работе, мы с вами заполняем в том объеме, в котором мы можем сейчас заполнить, понимая, что сам инструмент, он более полно может использоваться уже при вашем использовании с работы с предприятием. Дальше, то есть, по сути, мы таким образом подготовили такую базу как бы исходных данных, которые потом мы должны проанализировать и понять, вот как же проранжировать, где выявить наши резервы. Для этого мы можем посмотреть на формочку 4.2. Тут ее не нужно вмешиваться, она автоматически рассчитывается. И здесь мы увидим общее количество затрат на потери материалов, потери упаковки, на отходы и процентный вклад каждой из категорий затрат, которые не входят конкретно в продукцию. Так же само мы можем вот, воспользоваться дополнительной формочкой, которая справа указана. И здесь то, о чем Сергей рассказывал, для многих отходов мы можем четко идентифицировать, что эти отходы вместе с ними теряются или отходы, или сточные воды. Мы можем четко идентифицировать, что вместе с ними теряется целевой какой-то продукт, или сырье, или полуфабрикаты, или готовая продукция. Таким образом, мы можем напротив соответствующего отхода, вот, например, отход номер 1, мы ничего, целевой продукт тут не присутствует. А в отходе номер 2 мы имеем 600 тонн отходов, а в них 200 тонн целевого продукта. И этот целевой продукт или сырье, они имеют определенную стоимость. И валовые общие затраты, связанные с данным конкретным отходом, у нас уже возрастают. И мы можем по каждому отходу, вот, или в сточных водах мы можем сырье терять, мы можем увидеть распределение уже с учетом вот этих дополнительных, скрытых, как бы на первый взгляд, затрат. Ну, рядышком вы можете увидеть диаграммы, уже визуализация в виде круговых диаграмм. И ниже, в этой же формочке, у нас тоже, вот Сергей показывал вам по потребителям энергоресурсов. Мы вводим вот основных потребителей, сколько потребляет энергоресурсов, вводим стоимость энергоресурсов потребленных. И в виде диаграмм круговых мы можем посмотреть уже распределение вклад этих составляющих в виде физическом вкладе в киловатт-часах и в денежном эквиваленте. А дальше вот эта информация, она уже позволяет нам ранжировать наш фокус внимания. Вот по сути то, что мы хотели для всех вот так донести, прежде чем приступить к групповым работам. Сейчас попробуем поработать с этим в группах. We'll need 30 minutes for group work. Вот, можем приступать.
მე ჩავთავ ახლა ჯგუფებს და გელოდებით ყველას. ხო, მანამდე მე საერთო ჩატში გავაზიარებ მული, სადაც
So I will invite you to the virtual rooms, and please, I invite you for the group work.
May we please know the period? Sergey, you're smiling. I take it.
It's a magic. Yeah, it's the magics because we've been in our room and suddenly we moved somewhere.
You didn't see the notification? You weren't given?
No, we've seen, of course.
But it wasn't enough.
Of course. Always we want to spend more time, but I think it was very good exercise. Dmitry?
Так, да, я здесь.
Please continue.
Уже можно?
Yeah.
Да. Итак, продолжим нашу работу. Мы уже много информации, Сергей.
So we are continuing our work. Lots of information was conveyed,
Ближе.
communicated. We are getting closer and closer to practical work, to practical steps, the observation monitoring of the enterprises, and these the presentations I will try actually to provide a number of useful recommendations, advices regarding the steps taken. So once we are talking about, we have been talking a lot about visiting the enterprises, the collection of data collection.
უკაცრავად ეს ინგლისურად ქართულად უნდა ითარგმნოს.
მე არ ვიცი ხა ინგლისურად
относительно
ქართულად მე მგონი ქართულად თუ შეიძლება.
Относительно цели сбора информации, для чего мы ее собираем. Итак, информация нам нужна для того, чтобы, первое, это лучше для себя вникнуть, разобраться в структуре предприятий, технологических процессов предприятий, корректно определить базовый уровень потребления ресурсов, образования отходов, сформировать базу для будущего выявления неэффективности использования ресурсов и основу для развития деятельности ресурсоэффективного, более чистого производства. И учитывая все это, у нас получается, что мы вынуждены собирать достаточно большое количество разной информации и о технологических процессах, и о сырье, и о продукции, и о сточных водах, и данные о проблемах предприятий, и данные о нашем общении с сотрудниками. И получается, что в режиме ограниченного времени перед нами стоит много задач и много информации, которую необходимо получить и зафиксировать вот у себя. При этом всем также следует отметить, что предприятия, как правило, в основе своей, они часто имеют типовые процессы, типовые стандартизированное оборудование, типовые ситуации, которые могут возникать. И на сегодняшний день уже накоплен достаточно большой опыт других экспертов, работы с предприятиями, проведения подобных работ. И, конечно же, это все нужно использовать для того, чтобы повысить эффективность непосредственно нашей работы. Для того, чтобы не упустить важные вопросы, для того, чтобы эффективно использовать имеющееся время, для того, чтобы распределить задачи эффективно между представителями одной команды, удобно фиксировать информацию. Для этого целесообразно использовать заранее подготовленные шаблоны. И при подготовке шаблонов, конечно же, хорошо использовать опыт, уже имеющийся опыт других экспертов. И учитывая вот этот уже накопленный опыт, для того, чтобы помочь нашим участникам тренинга, вам будут доступны некоторые шаблоны. Это шаблон Initial Audit Checklist, это шаблон Pre-Assessment Checklist. Также будут доступны формы для подготовки отчетов о посещении компании. Это форма о быстром первичном посещении и форма для подготовки первых разделов уже общего финального отчета. На слайде вы можете увидеть вот такое примерное получить впечатление, да, о Initial Audit Checklist документе, который по сути представляет собой набор шаблонов для типовых процессов, для типового оборудования. И вы можете при подготовке к посещению предприятия, вы можете ознакомиться с этим документом и выбрать из этого набора уже те конкретные формы, которые будут подходить под ваши задачи, под те ваши технологические процессы, оборудование, с которыми вам придется работать. Следующий шаблон, также вы видите на слайде вот формочку. pre-assessment checklist. Здесь тоже собраны типовые вопросы относительно материальных потоков, потребления энергии, генерации тепловой энергии. Эти вопросы, они также будут вам полезны при подготовке к посещению предприятия, при формировании для себя уже акцента внимания. Также вы можете обратить внимание, что как предыдущий, так и данные шаблоны, они подготовлены в такой форме, которая предполагает возможность прямо здесь ставить отметки и делать какие-то короткие себе примечания. Такая форма подготовки шаблонов, она достаточно удобна. И мы бы рекомендовали вам тоже использовать в том числе и форму подготовки шаблонов. Опять же, хочу обратить внимание на то, что предыдущие документы – это хороший инструмент, он вспомогательный, но вам для подготовки к предприятию желательно подготавливать свои шаблоны, которые будут уже для вас конкретно использоваться и будут учитывать именно те особенности, с которыми вы будете работать. Как подготовить, на что обратить внимание? При подготовке своих уже отчетов целесообразно просмотреть предварительно формы, я сказал, при подготовке шаблонов, целесообразно просмотреть те формы отчетов, которые вам придется готовить. Обратить внимание на их структуру, на те данные, которые там нужно будет прорабатывать. Это поможет вам дополнительно учесть важные моменты, которые будут полезны. Также вы проработаете те шаблоны, которые я представил выше, но этим не обязательно ограничиваться. Можно смотреть и дополнительную информацию, и это рекомендуется. И с учетом уже проработанных документов, плюс также вам будет доступно краткое руководство о выполнении посещения предприятий, плюс материалы презентации, которые уже прозвучали для вас. То есть весь вот этот материал вы используете, по сути, эту всю информацию, руководствуясь вот этим всем набором, вы сможете подготовить себе удобные для вас, для вашего применения шаблоны для использования при посещении предприятий. Какие-то из представленных шаблонов их можно просто распечатать в таком виде, как есть, а какие-то модифицировать. Дальше скажу несколько слов о отчете о посещении компании, Company Visit Report. Этот отчет, его идея заключается в том, чтобы после посещения предприятия быстро, как говорят, по горячим следам, зафиксировать информацию в отчете, пока еще все свежо в памяти, зафиксировать и сделать первичную систематизацию данных, отметить, зафиксировать интересные какие-то моменты, которые были вами обнаружены, интересные мысли и рекомендации сотрудников, ваши предположения, где могут быть потенциально возможные мероприятия. То есть этот отчет, его не стоит воспринимать как некий финальный документ. Это рабочий документ, который предназначен, чтобы вам помочь не упустить главного. и сделать быстрые первые определенные выводы. Сейчас я дам несколько комментариев, учитывая ограниченность во времени, постараюсь на основные вещи сосредоточиться. Первая форма, она достаточно простая, здесь не должно каких-то быть сложностей. Единственный дам комментарий по формочке, которая ниже, которая предполагает внесение информации о производительности, о выпуске продукции за несколько лет. То есть цель этой формочки заключается в том, чтобы посмотреть, как работает компания. Возможно, она наращивает производство, возможно, наоборот. Возможно, какие-то ситуации повлияли в 2000 году на режимы работы, еще на работу компании, и это будет полезно вам уже учитывать для понимания дальнейшего тех данных, которые вы будете прорабатывать. Следующая форма. Уже мы рассматривали, и Сергей об этом говорил, и мы с вами с похожей формой работали на практической групповой работе. То есть здесь вносятся входные материалы, выходные потоки, продукция, отходы, их количество, количественные показатели и стоимостный эквивалент. Данная форма, она может позволить в быстром таком режиме анализа увидеть распределение затрат. Там, где вы будете вносить отходы, то рекомендуется также обратить внимание на тот вопрос, что стоимость самих отходов, она может быть выше, чем просто бухгалтерия их видит на предприятии, что она может включать в себя для многих отходов потери целевых продуктов. И это понимание, этот взгляд вам будет полезен для того, чтобы дальше выявлять резервы. Следующая форма, я не буду на ней останавливаться, Сергей ее уже комментировал в своем докладе, и мы уже тоже в групповой работе с такой формочкой работали. Тут такая ремарка. Сам отчет о первом посещении компании, он не предполагает обязательно, эту форму можно вставить, можно ее не вставить. В отчете, говорится, предлагается просто внести диаграммы, круговые распределения соответствующих затрат. Кому удобно работать в табличном виде, это можно сделать в табличном виде. Здесь подходить рекомендуется так, как вам будет удобнее для этого. Следующий. Так. Также при посещении предприятия вы будете собирать информацию о структуре предприятия, о производственных процессах. И эта информация тоже отображается в отчете, в упрощенном виде план, там, где это возможно. Здесь, опять же, мы отталкиваемся от здравого подхода детализации по данной информации. Для основных технологических процессов необходимо составить блок-схемы. И эти блок-схемы также включаются в отчет по посещению компании. И плюс рекомендуется указать важную информацию, которая позволит лучше понимать технологические процессы, такую информацию, как режимы работы, степень загрузки оборудования, может быть, какие-то процессы непрерывные, какие-то периодические, какие факторы влияют там на проведение периодических, какие стадии. То есть здесь уже для каждого из примеров предприятий могут быть свои особенности вот такой полезной информации, которую желательно также сразу внести в отчет для того, чтобы потом это было полезно для использования. Это пример блок-схемы, с этим мы уже достаточно говорили и работали, я не буду на этом останавливаться сейчас. Ой, прошу прощения. И в заключении в данном отчете предлагается вот то, о чем я говорил выше, зафиксировать уже первые ваши идеи, первые предложения относительно тех резервов возможных экономии, резервов или потенциальных мероприятий чистого производства и дать первичную такую информацию, которую внести в данный отчет для дальнейшего уже более внимательной проработки. Поскольку этот отчет является, как я говорил, таким вот быстрой реакцией, то когда вы будете его составлять, вы в том числе обнаружите, что каких-то данных вам может не хватать, где-то потребуется уточнение какой-то информации или более детальная проработка. Вот. И когда уже, и это займет больше времени. И вот следующий отчет, который вы будете готовить, который включает в себя, по сути, первые главы финального отчета, он предполагает уже такой более спокойный режим его подготовки и больше насыщенность информационную, скажем так. Если вы посмотрите на те формы, которые предлагается вам заполнить в данном отчете, то вы увидите уже для себя очень много знакомого. Среди прочего, о чем вот мы говорили, также пару слов буквально скажу о экологической политике, о намерениях предприятий. Когда вы будете работать с компаниями, то среди прочего желательно поинтересоваться у них, есть ли у них экологическая политика, есть ли у них какие-то экологические приоритеты. Может быть, они собираются или планируют разрабатывать экологическую политику. И здесь в начале просто отметить, имеется, то есть фактически как обстоит ситуация. А дальше, если предприятие будет уже предрасположено к тому, чтобы продвигаться в этом направлении, то вы можете помочь предприятию в подготовке уже намерений о экологической политике. Для этого есть отдельный шаблон, отдельные рекомендации, которые вам также будут доступны на общем диске. Дальше, переходя по отчету, мы с вами видим как раз вот ту форму, с которой мы работали, и поскольку мы уже уделили время для ее объяснения, как она заполняется, я не буду сейчас повторять, мы уже попробовали даже практически это делать. Вот, вы видите, что вот эти формы, по сути, уже мы с вами очень неплохо над этим поработали. Так, вот, тоже форма, о которой говорил Фащевский Сергей, о показателях KPI, как с ними работать. То есть здесь вы в данный отчет уже вставляете заполненные данные материалы, насколько возможно для данного конкретного предприятия это сделать. Плюс анализ экологических аспектов, И по итогу наша задача, вот то, с чего мы начинали, да, говорить, что основной наш вектор, основная задача вот этой итерации работы, одна из основных, заключается в том, чтобы мы выявили выявили потенциал наибольший наших приложений усилий, выявили интересные вот фокус внимания. И получается в данном отчете в разделе 4.6 вам нужно будет подытожить уже результаты аналитической обработки, систематизации вот этой информации, которая выше была представлена вот в таком насыщенном, уже можно сказать, виде, да, с учетом того инструментария, о котором детально говорил Сергей, того инструментария, который мы с вами попробовали на нашей групповой работе, и, конечно же, с учетом реальной конкретной ситуации, конкретных предприятий. Но я думаю, что в любом случае на этапах вашей работы у вас будет возможность получить консультации от экспертов, и это также вам поможет. На этом я хотел бы завершить данную презентацию, поблагодарить за внимание. Спасибо.
Now I will ask, thank you, Dmitry. Now I will ask Kote, if possible, to continue and actually come up to the finish and present what would be the next step, make us familiar with what we are going to do coming weeks and coming month. Kote, please.
მადლობა, ქართულად გავაგრძელებ მე, უფრო
I will continue in Georgian. So we have done already the majority part of the certain templates which we will need to work on and process in the future. Now I would like to talk about the future steps, what we need to do in the future, what activities are planned. First of all, I would like to say that now we are finalizing this first 3-day session of the trainings. And before we start the second training session, we will have the visits to the enterprises. All teams will go to the visit so that we have opportunity to see and to get familiar with the challenges already on site, and we will have opportunities to practice and apply the templates which was provided for us. So we had already done our assignments partly, and we are going also to planning to do our homework for the future. So please convert them and save them, and you will convert and enter the actual values into these templates. He's addressing the team members, so that as soon as we know exact dates, of course, we will communicate them to you the information about the site visits. Once they are defined, whoever can come to the plants, you will have the valid dates. And it will be good if you have the printouts for the documents, for the checklists, or at least blank paper and pen so that you can make some notes and to write down the information which will help you further to prepare the report, to develop reports. As for the assignments for the next sessions, I would like to say that so this homework too was shared among you, to all of you. It was communicated to all of you. And so what issues were comprised here? So this was preparation for the site visit or company visits. What is implied here? So the checklists, assessment checklists, we need to go through them. So these are the sort of, let's say so, universal or standardized templates. Maybe they're not so very relevant to, so there are some issues which are not very relevant to your particular plants, but you can skip them and fill out those ones which are relevant for your companies, for your plants. Also, you need to be ready and to be able to try to understand beforehand what kind of templates you will need. Another assignment implies your activities already directly at the company side. So it means that who you are going to talk, to meet with, which questions you are going to ask them. You need to see all and observe all hotspots where, for example, raw materials are consumed, where the main waste flows are developed, solid waste as well as wastewater, to observe the points where the energy carriers are consumed, so that we are able to develop the block schemes, so-called block schemes. And we need to understand, to define where the hotspots are, where the problematic sites are. And of course, we need to ask questions to the personnel or management where they think their hotspots and challenges are, and what they plan, how they're planning to improve the situation, to eliminate the problematic sites. So after we obtain all this information, you already have the templates. This is the site visit or company report, which needs to be developed immediately, pretty soon after the visits, so not to forget things. So probably they should be developed within a week. So all this information which is fresh in your mind, you need to write down and include in your report under various sections. And further, of course, our trainers will help you to analyze, process the information, analyze, and to convert them into specific activities for the future. And then, so that then in the implant assessment report, there should be final document, and will be further able to convert this information under 4 sections of the final report, which comprise the information about the energy consumption, financial costs, investments, losses, etc., etc. So this is a long-running, let's say, so long-term report, which needs to be updated regularly. But the initial report I've already mentioned that needs to be filled out within 1 week, so that not to miss anything, not to forget anything. Maybe the companies, of course, are not able to immediately convey and communicate all the information, but after we contact with them virtually, we will have some contact person, and this person will communicate the information about their annual losses, annual costs, etc., etc. So the first report should be developed within one week. And then in the final one, it will be updated regularly. If there are any additional Additional questions? Of course, you can ask now so that we can take this opportunity for direct communication. I have a question. These templates, of course, are very good, but so can you print it out first? No, we cannot print out for you, but as soon as this workshop is over, we will send to you all the materials, the templates, reports, assignments, everything will be sent and shared with you, with the video records, etc., etc. Thank you very much. So after, yeah. So do you think that the visit will be planned shortly, or we will have time to get ready? No, you will have time to get prepared, definitely. So we'll first plan those enterprises which are closer to Tbilisi. Yeah, of course, it's not going to be a surprise. It will be agreed with all the participants. It's not come all of a sudden, you know. Nobody will tell you that you need to leave and go like tomorrow at 5 o'clock. It will be agreed among all of you. It's not going to be a surprise. It will be planned jointly with you. It will be jointly planned events. Thank you. Yeah, so why I'm saying that, I want to get the materials so that we get prepared, we get ready for the site visits. Okay. We do understand, I do understand. Kote and us, our organization, will be providing the logistics for that, but you are so we will provide some time frames, you know, and you will then, so that you will then agree on specific time. Thank you. No more questions, actually. No, any more questions? Okay. I already asked everyone to fill out the assessment evaluation form. Good. If anyone does Sergey want to say anything?
I would like to thank you all for your patience. And this time we touched upon real methodology. It is not difficult, but it is about looking at what we do, looking at how we do, and what are the consequences of our work, at the company's work, systematically, is analytical work. And you that are going to do this analytical work, in my eyes, are experts and are analysts. And I think it's important that companies would understand that this is a unique chance for them, that a team of analysts will work and assess performance or efficiency of their performance. And I wish you success. I fully agree with my colleagues, with Iftihi, is that there is no rush to visit the companies tomorrow. The better prepared we are, the better results would be from the outcomes would be from the company visit reports. And once you are back, once you are replenish your mind with lots of interesting and exciting ideas, I would be happy, me, Dmitry, and colleagues Georgi, Kote, will be happy to speak to you, to listen to you, and we're gonna discuss your reports in the period between this session and the next session. And then I'm sure that I will learn a lot from your ideas and would be happy to contribute with my experience and with the best of my knowledge to make your reports, make your ideas better, more refined, correct. And if I would be giving some questions, it's not about criticism, but it's only an attempt to make our assessment better, the analysis more valid, thereof, and come up with even better measures and opportunities. I want to thank you very much again, and I hope now it's Friday evening. I wish you nice weekend. It is here, it's quite cold. It was -17, but I hope in Tbilisi and in surroundings, it's turning to spring, and it's getting
worse in
warmer
Georgia.
and warmer. Thank you very much. Thank you, George, and thank you, my very best friends from Georgia.
Madloba.
შეგახსენებთ, აი ლინკი ჩავაგდე, სადაც ყველა დოკუმენტი იქნება და
So
მე
I will already send you, I will share the link where you will be able to see all the documents which was used during these 2 days. Thanks. Thank you. I would like to thank the interpreters and to Sergey and Dmitry. Thank you very much for your enthusiasm, for your energy, for your enthusiasm and energy has not decreased during the day. So thank you. Bye. Bye. We are in contact. We are getting in touch.
Ერთიც რა გვაინტერესებს მე და ჩემი გუნდის წევრებს, თუ არის საშუალება რომ გავეცნოთ
Is it possible to get familiarized with the can we see the documents of the experts who have already done this work? I think this is private work or yeah, generally it is possible.
შესაძლებელია ეს საძიებელია, იმიტომ რომ თქვენ თუ არ ვიცი რა.
Theoretically it is possible, but I don't know which company you are planning to visit.
მაგრამ უყურეთ, დიახ, მაგრამ რამდენად გამოსადეგი იქნება მაგალითად ლითონ გადამამუშავებელი ქარხანისთვის ყველის საწარმოს დამთავრებული.
For example, if a project or dairy plant is useful for metal production, you know. So which, yeah, so if it is, yeah, can we see the work or by other experts? Yeah, it depends on what sort of technologies we deal with. I think you can actually seek for this information on the internet, you know, templates relevant to you. So, for example, if we are in the cheese factory, cheese plants, you can, so we need to see what is the relevant for us, the tonnage, consumption of energy, etc., etc. Let's see what is relevant. So, I think it would be better. Yes, we can share some things for you, but I think you can seek for more relevant ones yourselves. Sergey, do you want to add something?
I think a question from Melita was very reasonable. I fully agree with the answer from George and his viewpoint. Every company is different, and you will, if you will receive a clean production or resource efficiency assessment done at another company, it will have a slightly different focus and will have some specifics that might be relevant or not relevant for yourself. But I fully agree with you as a team leader, Melita. You are probably started looking about best practices in the field of the companies you're going to work with. You're going to start collection of KPIs and benchmarks. And this is something that I would advise you and everybody to start as soon as possible. Try to find norms, relevant benchmarks, and target values. And this is and to find them, follow advice from George. And I'm sure, especially for dairies and cheesemaker, there's so much information, and for food processing companies, and there are so many various benchmarks and targets that you definitely will find useful stuff once. Thank you.
და კიდე დავამატებდი ერთს, რომ გაითვალისწინეთ, საიტ ვიზიტების დროს მე და ბატონი ნოდარიც ვიქნებით და ასე რომ პრობლემა არ იქნება იმ ხრივ, რომ თვითონ საიტზე ყოფნის დროს ჩვენგანაც დახმარებას მიიღებთ ნებისმიერ შემთხვევაში.
კი ბატონო, დიდი მადლობა თქვენი დახმარებისთვის და ასეთი ამომწურავი პასუხისთვის.
ასევე მინდა გითხრათ, რომ გარკვეული
Yes, so we will be there during the site visit and we will providing the consultancy, advice and support. And during the site visits,
გარკვეული გამოცდილება შეიძინოთ მანამ object.
Yeah, it would be good to get prepared really prior to site visits. I think we can. Okay, we can say now goodbye to each other today. Once again, I would like to thank everyone on behalf of the organizers. And I would like to thank UNIDO colleagues, international experts who have colleagues who have organized this event, who have provided the technical support for today's event. So if there are any questions, we are in touch, we keep in touch. So actually, my eyes were caught by Georgian translation of slides. And so if you see there were certain mistakes in the slides written translation. So if you think that we can put some better terminology, please, you can always advise. Thank you.